All right, everybody, welcome to episode 130 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I am with the co-host with the most, Drew, at DR underscore PRA. Drew, how are you doing?
Good, man. Glad we're making it happen.
Yeah, you're doing a lot better than my laptop right now, which is still trying to somehow work through updates, even though I updated it last week. So might be time for a new setup here, but there's another story for another day. Um,
It's all right.
we're in that season, Drew. News is slow. We got a little nugget here. We got Jarvis Landry to the Saints. How do you feel about that, man? What are you thinking?
I like it. As most people I think know, I'm relatively low on Michael Thomas at this point. I don't know that he's really going to be any more than a shell of what he used to be when he was the wide receiver one a few years back. I think Landry will fit in well, and he brings a skill set that's worked both in Miami and worked in Cleveland when they let him run there. So I think he'll be good. I think it'll be good for Olave to see a guy like him put in the work. I always got the impression that Landry was committed to his craft, wanted to be really good at it. So I think it'll be good for them, and hopefully bring little veteran presence at the wide receiver position that's had some success. So I like it for him in general.
Yeah, I think this is. I don't know what it is for Jarvis Landry. I don't think it really boosts his fantasy value at
Mhm.
all. But it's more interesting from the NFL angle because, I mean, it was Traquan Smith and, you know, insert random wide receiver here,
Yeah.
insert random tight end, Adam Troutman, Josh Hill here. And I know a lot of people are lower on Michael Thomas, but 50% of Michael Thomas is better than 120% of Traquan Smith. So um, that's an upgrade. Uh, Jarvis is an upgrade from whoever was wide receiver two. And yes, I said wide
Yeah,
receiver two.
they had
And,
Callaway for some deep balls, so he'll be around, I guess. But
obviously they moved a lot of capital to get Chris Olave in the first. So um, the wide receiver room has definitely become a lot more talented place in New Orleans. So good move by New Orleans. It's actually funny. There's a few teams that could have used a Jarvis Landry and for whatever reason opted not to do so. So we'll see what happens with Jarvis. See what he still has left in the tank. And that's it. That's the news. This time of year, you know it, Drew.
yep.
We're struggling for bits and bobs. Last week was kind of cool because we had like Sony Michelle, who could be a little interesting guy to have on your bench, and you know, but this year it's just Jarvis Landry on his own, and that's it. So uh, let's move to what we saw on the timeline.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to cheat a little bit this week. We got some coming from a couple of different chats we're in on GroupMe and some Twitter DMs here. So the first one's from Ari Roth in one of our GroupMe chats. Hey, Josh, just a question for you for potential use on the pod. In another league, we've got taxi squads that have no limit to the number of squad spots, just a limit of time of 3 seasons to keep them there without burning up an actual roster spot. And players that cost a roster spot, if you move them up, it looks like they can't be relegated back to the taxi squad again. So you can keep them there for a few years, but once you promote them, they're promoted, and then you got to do something with them, either start them, cut them, trade them. So it sounds like Ari's trying to contend this coming season, and he thinks at least one of his rookie picks this year will be able to help him. But he's been searching for some articles or opinions on when to make the activations and promotions, but didn't find much. So he's looking for thoughts on how we go about considering when to make a promotion from the taxi squad to his regular roster. Is it as simple as if you'd start him, activate him, or anything else that you'd be thinking about?
So, yeah, I don't think it's as simple as if you would start him, bring him up. Because what's your team trying to do in 2022? Are you a contender? Well, if you're a contender and you have a guy or two or three or however many on your taxi squad that are consistently performing, yeah, you should bring them up. You should, even if it's just on your bench, knowing that, like, hey, bye week fill in possibly, or maybe they take, like a wide receiver 3 spot or running back 2 spot type deal. So, yeah, if you're contending, you do that. But if you're trying to get that 2023 101, keep those guys on your taxi squad. Why? They're not going to do you. They're just going to take up a bench spot, which, who knows? You can find the next guy that no one even thought of, and there's a guy or two every year. Last year it was probably KJ Osborne, who no one drafted and no one took in the rookie draft, and people were spending fab on him. Or you need to pick up that backup quarterback off of waivers because a starter got hurt. Keep him on the taxi squad. Don't even use the bench spot. Just keep him there. Keep losing those games, hopefully, and get yourself the 101. So that's one thing I can think of right away. Another thing I can think of is I know certain leagues, guys can get poached off of the taxi squad, for like a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick or something like that. And then, you have to make the decision to either trade them to the team making the trade offer, or you have to bring them up. So that's another thing I can think of off the top of my head. What about you, Drew? Do you have any other criteria that you use when you're trying to decide to bring someone up from taxi?
Yeah, it sounds like Ari wants to compete this year, or thinks he could, and is just trying to figure out the timing if or when one of his rookies hit. I think when you're looking at the idea that you can't relegate them again or demote them back to the taxi squad, I will typically let them go for a couple weeks and see if I think they're the real deal. Or after that first blow up week, maybe they have a great week 2 or week 3. I would see if somebody else maybe wants to trade that older vet like Amari Cooper or somebody like that for this up and coming, guy you have on your taxi squad. Depending on your rules, sometimes if you trade taxi to another team, they can stay on that team's taxi since they haven't been promoted yet. So you can play a couple different angles there and, kind of let the other manager take on some of that risk of, is this the real deal? Which again, if it's a 1st round wide receiver and it's, let's say Jameson Williams comes back healthy in week 5 or 6, and his first, maybe by Thanksgiving, he's actually contributing, getting some targets, and you think, oh, maybe I could use him for a playoff push. I spent a 1st on him. I'd probably hang on to him at that point. But if maybe it's a 2nd round guy like a David Bell or a Mechie or somebody that you spent a mid to late 2nd on, and you're still not 100% sold personally, I would see if somebody else wants to, by that point, maybe they know they're out of it. They don't want the points. They want to get rid of, maybe Jarvis Landry has fit in real nice with the Saints by week 6, 7, 8. Maybe he's getting 7, 8 targets a game, and he could put you over the top too. So I wouldn't promote him too early when you can't demote him again. And I would be looking to trade some of those 2nd round guys that maybe look like they might pop and see if somebody else wants to assume the risk there if you're looking to compete this year, and you could maybe lock in a more certain contributor. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. So I don't know if you had anything else to add there, Josh.
No, I think that's a really good point as well. Taxi squad, it's funny because I love taxi squad and I hate taxi squad all at the same time. So,
yep.
Taxi squad, if I was in a situation like that, I think all the leagues I'm in taxi squad, you can promote and relegate as you feel for rookies. So It's kind of just like, all right, maybe I need, let's use David Bell. You mentioned David Bell earlier. Maybe he's been okay, and I need to bring him up because it's a bye week. I've had a couple injuries at the wide receiver position, and maybe David Bell's got to go into the flex for me or wide receiver 3. It's nice to be able to bring him up, and then the next week I get guys healthy, guys are off a bye week, and then I can just drop them back down again and not have to worry about using the bench spot. But in a league like this, I mean, you have to be a lot more judicious with who you bring up and when you decide to bring them up, because if a favorite of both of ours, let's use Garrett Wilson. Yeah, like it would be awesome to week 1 he blows up, he goes 10 for 120 and a touchdown, and we're like, whoo, all right, New York Jets offense, they're cooking. Yeah, Garrett Wilson is that dude. And then you bring him up, and then week 2, it's 2 receptions for 22 yards. And you're like, oh, maybe I pulled the trigger too early on that. And then, weeks 3 through 5, you're getting very similar performances. And, he was on your taxi week 1 probably anyway. And then you have 5 weeks of not being able to use them. And you're taking up the bench spot where you kind of could have weathered that slow start and not use the bench spot. So it's all, a lot of it is kind of like feel sometimes. You're just like, all right, like I've seen, 3 straight good weeks, or, maybe 3 out of 5 weeks or something like that. And you feel like, okay, this guy I think he's getting in the groove. He's there. The team is playing well, or the offense is playing well. And then you push him up. And then sometimes, you get excited after a week and you push them up. So it's tough. I definitely err more on the side of caution. I want to see kind of a nice, month of good play. I don't need wide receiver 1 or running back 1 numbers in all of those games, but I also don't want, I don't need running back 36 week or 236 weeks or something like that, where it's like, okay, like I could have just put in, Devin Singletary or Tony Pollard or something like that and kind of gotten the same result. So, I would say, Ari, be judicious when you decide, because once you do it, there's no turning back. All right, Drew, what do we got next on here?
Got a repeat guest here for a question. The Ogre, I think he asked something, or they asked something last week at No Good Nick.
Yep.
Should I trade Mark Andrews for Mac Jones? Only quarterbacks I have are Heineke, Watson, and Mond. If I want any shot at this season, I do it right. I already have Hawkinson also at tight end. And it looks like we discovered through the thread here that this is a 12-team non-tight end premium. What do you think, Josh? Andrews for Mac Jones to bolster his QB room a little bit?
All right, so I want to pull the curtain back here a little bit. No Good Nick had sent me this probably 2 or 3 days before I responded, because I got sick over the weekend. Actually lost my voice. I'm glad I got it back for the episode here, but was kind of just fighting something off. So when I got back to him, he said, "Look, I already made the deal." So he has traded Mark Andrews for Mac Jones. I wish he had held off, because I would have advised him to not do that. It not being tight end premium takes away a little bit of the sting, but not enough of the sting for me to feel okay about it. There's actually a link there, Drew, where you can see his lineup. And this is I don't know what to think of this team. Assuming that this is his starting lineup, which it looks like it is, because he had actually mentioned in one of the other tweets that Raheem Mostert was starting in his Superflex spot before the trade. So I would have advised him if I had been healthy and had gotten to this as quickly as I normally get to people who ask me for advice. Keep Mark Andrews. And, patent pending, I would have used the Rocky Petrella approach for this team. Trade a second for Tom Brady. Trade a second for, what's another old quarterback that,
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan. Perfect example. Trade no, that's not a good example. I was going to say grab yourself Marcus Mariota. I just don't like the weapons around Marcus Mariota more than I dislike Marcus Mariota. I just don't like the weapons around him. I feel it's Kyle Pitts and not much else, and Cordarrelle Patterson. But, get one of those guys that everyone is just like, this guy is old, or this guy, trade a third for Baker and just, he's gonna play. Like, all this business, no team has traded for him. Guess what? QBs get injured. We've seen it happen a million times. They don't like the backup. Jimmy Garoppolo is still out there. There are guys that you don't have to give up a lot of capital for. Hell, try to trade a second for Kirk Cousins. Everyone hates Kirk Cousins, even though he's a quarterback one every freaking year. We hate him. We don't like him. The community hates him. And if you're lucky, a high second or a projected high second, we'll probably get the deal done because we hate Kirk Cousins. Things like that. I don't like, and I understand in Superflex, if you want to get the quarterback and you're not giving up a quarterback, you have to overpay. But this is an overpay. I almost would have rather tried to trade TJ Hawkinson for, if Mac Jones was the target for Mac Jones. That would have been my play if I had to get Mac Jones. But to be honest, I probably would have actually hit up Rocky and been like, hey, give me like 3 quarterbacks that you really like, that like you would go out and try to acquire. I know, Tom Brady would probably be on that list. Matt Ryan is a really good one too. He would probably be on the list. Mm-hmm. And use some,
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz, it's another good one. Carson Wentz. Hell, buy low on Danny Dimes.
Yep.
Maybe it's a mistake, but at least you would still have Mark Andrews as a trade chip if it's a mistake, because Mac Jones was the best rookie quarterback last year, but the bar was set very low. And I don't know if, what was he last year? Like QB 15, QB 16?
Yeah.
Like,
the Buffalo game definitely hurt.
Yeah, the Buffalo game did definitely hurt. But do we expect much more? I mean, I don't think anyone is really predicting Mac Jones QB1 this year. So you're looking at a QB 15, 16 performance again. All right, cool. Like, I would rather keep Mark Andrews and just buy a year of Tom Brady. Tom Brady would have been the first guy I told him to go after. Try to get Tom Brady. Yep. Maybe he's on a team that's trying to rebuild, and you go, hey, I got a nice shiny 2023 second. We all love 2023. 2022 was garbage. That's what everyone, including myself, has said. 2022 is garbage, but 2023 is where we get all of our hope back. Yeah. Pump up those 2023 picks and go, Tom Brady's not playing next year. He's got like a $5 billion contract to announce games as soon as he's done. He's not. He's going to, one more year of getting hit. He's going to be, 78 years old after the season's done.
Social Security's coming.
Yeah. He's gonna go announce games and make even more money, if that's humanly possible, than he is being a professional quarterback. So, yeah, I think most teams would be like, yeah, a second for a guy who won't play next year, deal. And now you have a guy who can be a quarterback one. Like, I don't care that he's going to be 46 this year.
Is it 44, 45?
Something like that. And that time I wasn't trying to be funny, but I mean, I know he's in his mid-ish 40s. So,
Yeah.
You know, again, it's dynasty. We don't even like guys after they cross over to 30, never mind being in their mid-40s, and a guy that we know probably is not going to play next year. So pump that up, say, here's a 2023 second. But his team is interesting. What do you think about this, Drew?
Yeah, I'm looking, and it's start 11, so it's fairly deep. I definitely, if you're going to go and do Andrews, I would have recommended pushing for a second piece as well, whether that's a future pick, whether that's another running back, because it looks like James Robinson and Raheem Mostert are still in the starting lineup. So is Devontae Parker, which I understand. You're looking at 132 players off the board in this format to start. I'm guessing benches are fairly deep, so you got to do what you got to do. But I immediately went to what you said, Josh, with let's go down to Hawkinson if it's got to be Mac Jones, and if it's Andrews, I would definitely be looking for a second piece back that I could either trade into another startable piece or, for Andrews, gosh, if somebody offered me Mac Jones in this format for Andrews, I would be looking to get. He's got Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook. Quite frankly, I'd be looking to get like a Derrick Henry back or something. Just go all in on this year.
Yeah.
See what you can get. A couple of guys that are aging, maybe coming off injury. You want to go younger, you could probably get, maybe like a Travis Etienne, thrown in if you want to keep that theme of running backs that are coming back off of injury. I wish you had some chances to go back and do that one again. But I love that, you're active and you're trying to make things happen and you're committing to the year.
You have the starting lineup. Is this a 3 wide receiver?
Yeah, it's 3 wide receiver, 2 running back, tight end, 3 flex, and a super flex.
Yeah, because I think I remember. Can't remember who his wide receiver 1 is, but I know he has Garrett Wilson and Devontae Parker.
Debo.
Who's his number 1?
Debo.
Man, why don't, especially because this is a start 3, adding another piece, why don't you get a guy that's a wide receiver that's a little bit older, coming off of a quote-unquote down season, Stefan Diggs. Like, people are like, excuse me. People are like, oh, damn. Diggs had one good season. He stunk, which he didn't. And get him kind of on the downside.
I like that a lot. We'll actually come back to a question about Diggs here in a little bit, but I want to throw this up from our friend here, Recovering Ridley Truther. What do you feel about buying Jimmy G and Baker? They're basically free right now. Got to think they'll at least get one more shot somewhere, maybe a value bump. Can't really get much worse. So you mentioned Baker as one of those guys. Jimmy G came to mind for me as well too. As somebody should get at least one more shot. I think Baker's a couple years younger, so it's possible maybe he has a better chance to get there, especially with the draft capital that he had. But I don't know if that matters anymore after his first contract. But I like both those guys. If you can get them cheap, I've got Jimmy G on a couple teams, and I'm not letting them go. I've had people throw late seconds, early thirds, and at that value, I'm going to hang on to them. But if you can snag them for that late second, early third, or a 2023 third because the class is so good, or if you got multiple seconds next year and you think you want to take that gamble to add some depth, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably, if I wanted to acquire one of these 2 guys, I'd probably go after Baker first. I think there's the better chance of him starting earlier in the season and starting more games than Jimmy G. But the thing I think is interesting about Jimmy G is I think he might be starting games for the 49ers. I mean, I saw a tweet today. Apparently, San Francisco was still telling people that, they weren't able to trade Jimmy because of the injury, because of the surgery, and blah, blah, blah. And there's probably a lot of truth to that. But Trey Lance started, one game last year when Jimmy G was hurt?
Like one full game and a couple parts of others.
Right. So throughout the year, the coaching staff is watching both of these guys, and they said Jimmy G gives us the best chance to win games. And by the way, they did make it to the NFC Championship game, and you can put whatever percentage of that you want on Jimmy Garoppolo. But they did make it to the NFC Championship game with Jimmy Garoppolo behind center. So, and the fact that he hasn't been traded, man, it just makes me think that he might be in San Francisco the entire season. Monetarily, that sucks because I think he's due to make like $25 million. And if he's not starting a bunch of games, having a $25 million backup is not good business. I mean, I guess it's okay when, you have a rookie first-round pick. But, yeah, I mean, I would try to go for Baker because either a team like Carolina or Seattle is going to cave because, look, I mean, hey, Matt Corral could be a thing. I don't want to count Matt Corral out before he, takes a snap in the NFL. But obviously he lasted a lot longer, as did all the quarterbacks not named Kenny Pickett. But he lasted a lot longer than most people thought he would. And Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold. Seattle has shouted from the rooftops that they're not taking him because of, because he is who he is, I guess. But, I mean, Drew Lock and Geno Smith, I mean, if your plan is to try to get the number 1 or number 2 overall pick in the draft, that is the quarterback
Good strategy
you want to have. But, man, talk about wasting a year of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett's career if that's the route you decide to go. So, yeah, I mean, I'd probably go Baker first, but
that's interesting that you say that because as of right now, one of them is still a starting quarterback, right?
In theory, yes.
On paper?
I think I don't even know if it's on paper. I'd be curious what the Our Lads depth chart has right now because that would be fun to see. I don't know if those have been updated lately, but
let's see here. It looks like they have.
Drum roll, please.
Wow, they have Trey Lance slotted in as QB1 right now.
All right. So, but I don't think either one of us would be shocked if, walking out to the field week 1, it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's part of why I'm holding him because that's a realistic option.
And honestly, if he gets traded, he's going to start. Like if he gets traded to Seattle, sorry, Drew Lock, I'll talk to you later. Sorry, Matt Corral, I'll talk to you later. Like he's kicking those guys out. Like they're not starting. And if an injury happens and he gets traded, well, he's replacing whoever that injured quarterback is, so he's starting. So, yeah, I mean that's a great point. I would go Baker first, but I don't. Listen, start throwing thirds out there.
Yeah, whichever one you can get, really.
Like, look at your league, and if you're not the guy that owns one or both of those guys, a 2023 third. Like I said, Drew, we gotta start hyping up these 2023 picks because it's like, listen, 2023, you're gonna find guys in the third round. Yeah. This isn't 2022 we're talking about. You can find guys. And listen, I'm not a Devy guy. There's so many great Devy podcasts that if you want to know that stuff, I can recommend a bunch. But that's what we're all thinking. We're already thinking like, man, 2023, man, it's going to be so good. We're going to find guys in the third, maybe even the fourth. We're going to find guys. That's how we're hyping it up right now. And I'm telling you, I bet you Jimmy Garoppolo can be had for a 2023 third. Now I have him on a team. You ain't getting him from me for a 2023 third. But I don't know if the majority of dynasty players feel the same way about Jimmy Garoppolo as we do. So test the waters, and see what happens. All right, Drew, what do we got next on the list there?
All right, we've got Carrie, Chaitoff, at Carrie Chaitoff. Question for the show here. Loyal follower, appreciate that, Carrie. Do I trade away in Dynasty A.J. Brown for either Bateman, Chase Edmonds, Miles Sanders, one of those three, and a 23 first and third? So one of the three players of Bateman, Edmonds, Sanders, packaged with a first and third next year for one A.J. Brown, who just landed in Philadelphia. All right, what do you think?
So first of all, if I'm going to pick one of those players, it's going to be Chase Edmonds, because that Miami backfield is looking that's looking like a place I don't want to be.
I think the trio of players, one of those three gets bundled with the picks.
Oh, no, I know.
Okay.
So the player I would pick out of those three, because it's only one of those three, or is it all those?
No, it's one of those. So they have A.J. Brown, and they're going to get one of those three players back plus the picks.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about it the other way. I was thinking that he's trying to trade for A.J.
Oh, yeah.
Brown.
Well, we could do both perspectives.
So, all right. So, okay, if he's getting the package, then I would probably go Bateman with the first and the third.
And that'd be enough to move A.J. Brown off your team?
So we have to treat this like a random 23 first, because we don't know.
Yep.
Was this team in the championship last year, or was this team picking 103? We don't have that information. So we have to treat this like a 106 and a 12 team. Pretty much dead middle. I think I do it. I mean, and this is a value play. This isn't more of I think the guy who's there at 106 is going to be better than A.J. Brown, or the combination of that player and Rashad Bateman and a random third. But it's the value, because guess what? It's going to be impossible during the season to get 2023 firsts off people. Like we've been talking about this class for 2 years now, 3 years now. You're going to have to pry. You're going to have to pry those from people's cold dead hands. So I think the value increase on that first is going to be insane. And we have to look at, I know Eagles fans, I know, that network brother, friend of the show, Rocky Petrella, has got to be excited with all the moves that the Eagles are making. But there are a lot of question marks about what's going on around A.J. Brown, because in my opinion, throwing-wise, it's a downgrade at quarterback. I think Tannehill's a better thrower of the ball than Jalen Hurts. It's also, there's more pass-catching talent around A.J. Brown than there was in Tennessee. Devonta Smith, first-round pick from last year, Dallas Goedert, and then there's, some other, much smaller pieces. But those are two guys that are talented players. And A.J. Brown really didn't have a whole lot of that when he was playing in Tennessee. So a couple things I think we need to look at. I think A.J. Brown is an amazing player. It was a great football move by the Eagles, but for fantasy, there might be a dip. And if you are buying, hoping you get the same top 5 wide receiver potential that A.J. Brown had in Tennessee, it might be more of a top 10 thing or top 12 thing if he stays healthy, which is another thing that A.J. Brown has struggled with. So if you can give me Rashad Bateman, who has had his own health issues, but that 23 first is really where it's like, as the season goes on, that thing is going to be a major piece in your arsenal, because if you are performing well, that first is going to be able to buy you a big piece, or maybe a few slightly smaller pieces. And if you're tanking, you have a first round pick that can help you move into the 101, or that can just be used to, take a guy to help you rebuild on your team. What do you think about this, Drew?
Yeah, I struggle with this. I think my gut reaction is I could make a case for taking a package here. I am not a huge AJ Brown fan. I think he and the Titans he specifically benefited from a lot of the play action that was there in Tennessee. Tannehill, yes, was a better passer, put more passes on him when he was running some of those routes, whether it was over the middle or some of the deeper balls. I think he and Hurts will do pretty well together. I think they've got the rapport. I think they'll work it out. I like how Hurts can continue to extend a play, and I think Brown is savvy enough to figure out how to take advantage of that as well. But yeah, I think you're right that the value of the first will continue to grow. So if you can get a hold of that, I will typically go kind of worst case scenario. I'll treat it as like a 108, 110 in my mind, and then hope that it goes up from there. And then really you choose which part of the package you think is going to be most helpful to you, this year. So if you're trying to compete and want points, if you need running back depth, great. Sanders is a fine option. You still get a piece of the Eagles offense, because Sanders is one of those guys that kind of dodged a bullet there in the draft and didn't have anybody really drafted around him at running back. If you like Bateman, or you need the wide receiver depth because maybe it's a start 3, that's a fine move too, especially now that Hollywood Brown is gone. So you can make a case for either of those guys. But I think you're right that first and that third, and especially if maybe that third gets you another piece you need this year. Maybe AJ Brown turns into Bateman and Jimmy G, like we were just talking about, along with that 2023 first. And you've got an opportunity to backfill. Maybe Jimmy G's not a starter after this season. Maybe he's going to be a backup somewhere, and his contract tells us so. And you get a shot at CJ Stroud or one of those top quarterbacks coming out next year to backfill after you have a good season this year, kind of patchworking it together. So I like the flexibility in the bundle side. And I think you're right that the 2023s will just get harder and harder to get. So if you've got an outstanding offer to get one, I'd be hard pressed to turn it down.
Do that. All right. Great question. What do we got next here, Drew?
We got a couple more. Tommy Blair at FF Tommy B. I was hoping that was Tommy Boy, classic movie, one of my favorites.
Love it.
What is your greatest strength as a dynasty manager, and how did you get good at it? I'll start. My greatest strength is that I care too much. No, for real. I think we talked about this with Bobby Koch a couple of weeks ago. I think I've grown in my patience when it comes to dynasty and the willingness to go through a rebuild process. I know a lot of people on Twitter will tell you, if you're a really good manager, you'll flip the team in a year, right? It'll take a season and you can do it. But there are some teams, maybe you take over an orphan or something, or you just had a catastrophic draft, and it takes an extra season. And I think that's where I've gotten a little bit more patient over the last few years, and had a real test last year, sitting on a couple teams where I actually earned the 101. And I've been trying to accumulate some more future picks as well. And then likewise, kind of going back to our first question around the taxi squad, not moving rookies or young players too quickly that I think should be doing better. Fortunately, I learned this lesson in redraft and not in a dynasty league. But one of those early players a couple of years ago was Justin Jefferson. I drafted him late, and it's actually a keeper league, so I lost out on keeping him the next year. But I drafted him super late, double-digit rounds. So my wide receiver 6, and by week 3, I just had enough. He wasn't living up to what I expected, so I dropped him. And within a week or 2, I was deeply regretting it. Couldn't trade for enough fab to get him back, and that's been one of the pieces that's helped me really kind of figure out. I'd rather sit on some of these players, especially wide receivers. And then on the flip side, I think I'm getting better at letting go of some of the running backs a little bit earlier, where I might have been more likely to hold on to a guy like CMC or Derrick Henry a little too long. But those are a couple things that I've been working on over the last couple of years. How about you, Josh?
It's funny because I think my greatest strength is actually in startup drafts, is actually drafting, because I think it's so funny. You hear a lot of different theories about how you should draft. There's zero RB, there's hero RB, there is BPA, best player available. Everyone has, like, hey, this is the way I do it. This is the way it should be done. This is the way everybody should do it. And I take a completely different thought process into a startup draft. Now I do want to clarify here. I'm talking about a traditional snake draft, because I was in my first dynasty auction draft with Drew about a month ago or so, and that's a totally different beast. So this is strictly snake dynasty startup. You have to go in. I go in with no preset strategy, because I think the best way to attack a startup draft is to allow the other teams to tell you what their strategy is and then counter effectively. Because guess what? I can go in with a zero RB strategy. But what if 8 other teams are going in with a zero RB strategy? So now if I am the last pick of the round, I have to get the 8th best wide receiver in the first round because I need to go zero RB, or I have to maybe get, the 5th best quarterback or the 3rd best tight end, whatever the case may be. This progresses during, all the way through the draft if you are stuck into a strategy. I was in a startup very early. I think this was January, and I saw early that a lot of people, probably more than half the league, was going zero RB. So I went RB heavy. I said, well, if you're going to let the value drop to me, I'm going to take these values. And, my wide receiver group is, it's a little touch and go. There's I drafted Odell before he got hurt in the Super Bowl, so that was painful. And I'm gonna have to figure things out. I used a couple of I drafted a couple first round picks, so I have Garrett Wilson and I have Christian Watson, so that but I'll be relying on rookies year one, which is always dicey proposition. But it's all so I always go in there because guess what? Maybe 5 teams are trying to go RB heavy in a draft. Or maybe, you have guys like John Hogue who are going to go QBX. What if there's 3 guys trying to go QBX? Or what if you have 3 Rockies, QB next? Just take the next guy. Just take the next guy. Just take the next guy. So you really, don't show your hand. Let everybody else show you their hand and kind of attack. But as you said, Drew, this is I played redraft for, this year is going to be my 22nd season playing fantasy football. I've been playing Dynasty now for 5 years. So I played 16, 17 years of redraft before I even got into Dynasty. So, people, there's always the redraft versus dynasty arguments. Who's better? Why are they better? But in redraft, your season is, a percentage of it, and a larger percentage than probably a lot of people would like to admit, is reliant on your draft. Like, did you draft well? Did you find values? Did you get guys in the right spot? And obviously the waiver wire is also very important. Whereas in Dynasty, you can maybe make up for some of your mistakes through trades, through, acquiring draft picks and doing that kind of stuff. So, but in redraft, man, the draft is really important. It's vitally important. So you can't just, in my opinion, you can't just go in with one strategy and say, this is the strategy, no matter what, I'm going to die on the hill, because if 5 other people are using your strategy, you're probably going to die on the hill. So, drafting is like what I have. And even, in Dynasty rookie drafting, I have fallen in love with that process, looking at guys, trying to find things that maybe other people haven't seen, and, exploit those, weaknesses. And like, sometimes you get, sometimes you do, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I have been, I think, lucky. I don't want to say good, because I feel like I have a higher percentage of rookie draft picks that hit, and that's not because I, figured out some secret formula. I just think I've been really lucky when it comes to rookie drafts. So Garrett Wilson to the moon, because I think I drafted him in just about every rookie draft I've been in. So Garrett Wilson to the moon. But yeah, that's a great question, because I don't know about you, Drew. I think you're the same way I am, but I don't want to speak for you. I rarely assess my strengths. I don't really think about them, because I'm always trying to improve on my weaknesses. I'm always trying to get better at the things that I'm not good at. Like, I still, to this day, I am a part of the, Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network, and our flagship show is the Trade Addicts Podcast. And I think trading is one of the weakest aspects to my Dynasty game. Like, I like doing it, but trades are like a puzzle, and I've never been good at puzzles. So I'm always feeling like either I'm giving up too much value, or I'm giving things away for way too cheap. Like I struggle with the puzzle. So I always look at things like that. Like, okay, how do I get better at that? As opposed to, hey, what's this thing that I do well, and why do I do it well? So it was good to see that question, and then kind of look at it and go, oh, well, yeah, I can see why this is a strength of mine. And I don't know if you feel the same way, or if you feel completely different about it.
Yeah, I think I enjoy the rookie draft each year, because I feel like I do my best to kind of tune out some of the noise, try to look for the signal through, again, some folks that are way more in tune and way smarter, whether it comes to some of the film, or I love reading through some of the analytics and looking back at comps and seeing what some of the folks in that space are putting together. I've joined a couple of different Discords to try to sharpen that part of it as well. I am stretching a little bit into Devi in a couple spots, because that's, I think, an area that I can continue to get stronger in. I want to have that edge where I think I can continue to maybe bolster that strength. But yeah, I would agree in a lot of ways. It's definitely, where can I get better? Where can I raise the floor on different parts? And for me, trading has definitely come a long way. And, not having to feel like I'm winning every trade. It still creeps up sometimes, depending on who it is, because some people just rub you with the offers they send. But in general, yeah, I'm definitely looking for what else can I improve. And, some of it now is process too, because just the sheer volume of leagues that I'm in. And that it is tough sometimes to individualize league by league and have to remember different rules, different settings, who's in them. So it's a lot of fun. It is an interesting puzzle if you're willing to take it on and try to work through it. But hopefully that helps. And yeah, hopefully you find some things that work for you. And then part of it too is, I think that's great to kind of expand outside of yourself, and where are your league mates strong? Where are they potentially overconfident even, right? Maybe you do have the person that thinks they always draft really, really well, and you feel like, okay, great. You take the dart throws, you do that, and I'll take the value in the trade because I feel stronger in putting the puzzle together. And you're going to feel good about getting the extra picks because you know what, you've had a track record of finding that late second gem each year. Maybe you picked up Davis Mills late last year. Maybe you got a couple of guys the year before. So have fun with it, and keep that in mind as you're working with your league, and push yourself. I think that's the other part. Is it's a game, so the only way to get better is to try, and that's something that the reason I took up golf, force myself to embrace the suck at something. So do that find a league. Maybe it's a low buy-in or a free league or something you want to join, or something off Reddit or Sleeper, and just let's try some different strategies, see what works, and then you can take that into something that's maybe a little more meaningful. So good question. Have fun with it. The next one here is from a friend of the show, returning member to the DAP network, if I'm right, Bobby Koch. Good to have him back on the airwaves. It looks like he's going to be popping in more frequently to some of the pods here. This was something that he put out there for Josh, I think, Matt Corral or Wandel. Did I say that right?
Wandel, correct.
Wandel Robinson. Team sort of needs QB depth because he has Matt Ryan and Russ Wilson. Not much else, but also needs wide receivers. So a little bit ambiguous here, but where do you fall on this? I think ADP wise, Wandel is probably going a little bit earlier than Matt Corral in most rookie drafts, but what are your thoughts there, Josh?
So, God, the rookie quarterback class of 2022. I kind of wish I was back in school. I could probably write a doctorate thesis on what happened and where we all went wrong, including myself, where we all went wrong. After Kenny Pickett, I feel like the next few guys are like, hey, they can all be 1-year starters. Like Matt Corral, barring a trade, is probably starting for the Carolina Panthers for 2022. Does that have value? Maybe. Sam Howell. Would any of us be shocked if Sam Howell is starting like week 7 because Carson Wentz just blows up in a massive explosion?
Or falls prey to a FedEx Field.
Falls prey to FedEx Field, but let's face it, people are divided on Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz had one of the best teams on paper. Pretty good offensive line, great running back, decent weapons. I don't want to say good weapons, but decent weapons. And now he's going to Washington. Offensive line, downgrade. Running back, downgrade. Pass catching weapons, maybe you say, it's an upgrade because Terry McLaurin is better than anyone that Indianapolis has. If we talk to Bobby, Jahan Dotson is a massive upgrade over anything that they would have at wide receiver 2. If Logan Thomas can get back to his 2021 form, it's an upgrade at tight end. So pass catching weapons or skill position players, upgrade. So what if Carson Wentz can't deal with a worse offensive line and a worse running back to kind of bail him out when he gets himself in trouble? Maybe we're talking about Sam Howell, week 7, week 8, week 9. Hey, Sam, here's your tryout for, possibly starting for this team. And that's kind of the upside of those two guys. But Wandel Robinson is just like, he's 5'8", and one of the things I hear about him is, yeah, he's going to do, he's going to be like the Kadarius Toney. Cool, but A, they have the Kadarius Toney, and 2, besides one blow-up game, what did Kadarius Toney do last year? I would probably go Corral because it's super flex. The quarterback, who knows? Maybe the Golden Corral gets hot and, actually looks good out there. I'm not predicting that, but it's a possibility. But, I mean, Drew, you could argue this either way, and I would be like, that's a really good point. That's kind of what the mid to late second round is. It's like, pick a guy you like and hope for the best. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. Didn't even put Golden Corral together. Hopefully he's more like the commercials and less like reality, right?
Very true.
But I could go either way. If you need wide receiver, I think I would go. If you need both, I would probably go with Robinson. If he works out, great. You have instant value. So if you're still rebuilding a little bit, you could probably package him up or trade him for a future pick or for, maybe another player you like better. I think a lot of people are pretty on board with the idea that most of these rookie quarterbacks are going to have a pretty short leash and are immediately replaceable. So I don't know that you're going to get the value back out that you're going to spend with the pick anyways. If you're going to spend the 302 on Corral, I don't know you get much more than a third back during the season once he gets a start. I think Robinson, you get him for a late second, early third. You could probably flip him pretty quick for a 23 second even, to a team that needs some instant production or just likes the youth. Maybe, again, same thing. You could trade the youth for a vet who will give you some stability. So I think I lean Robinson, probably like a 60-40 split there. But the margin is not so vast that I couldn't see going the other side as well.
So there you go, Bobby. We split it for you, and Bobby told us that he ended up taking Wandel. So, it's man, where does it really where do you really go? Just take the guy you like. Like, what pick does that start at? Because I actually feel like it probably starts at 202, 203, where taking somebody, there's not an obvious pick where it's like, oh, you took David Bell over, John Mechie. It's like, okay, cool. I like this guy more than that guy for this reason. And you're just like, yeah, I kind of get it. Obviously there's a lot of David Bell love, so I'm sure I've ruffled some feathers on that one, but it's
I just got my first share of Isaiah Spiller in my home dynasty league, and he is one of those. He was the best option out there. I think I got him at 301. It's IDP as well, so a couple of IDP players that push some value down. But he would have been even with that, he would have been a late second, which I feel good about that based on a lot of the rankings that are out there. And but yeah, I think you're right. Honestly, after Chris Olave, or maybe you get back into, if you're a Sky Moore Christian Watson fan, maybe you can push out to the 110 or so. So really by 111, 112, you're making some judgment and preference calls. Maybe you're drafting a little bit for need more now than you would in the past, where there's clear value. Where last year, absolutely, if you insert Jalen Waddle into this class, who was going in the end of the first last year, this year, where does he go? 107, somewhere around 105, higher.
No, because even as a prospect, I mean, he was drafted fifth or sixth in the NFL draft by Miami.
I didn't realize he was that early. Yeah.
He was definitely
so top, earlier than London was.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, he would probably be the 101 in this class. Yeah. I mean, I think now maybe because Brees is a running back, maybe not. Because we always overinflate the running back.
Yeah, a little scarcity there,
but he would be 102 at the worst. I mean, he'd be above Drake London, Garrett Wilson. Yeah. Just as a prospect, he would be above all of those guys. So, Yeah, actually, no, I think he was 106. I think Jamar Chase was 105. Now that I'm kind of doing my math. But yeah, I mean, if he was inserted into this class, I would assume again that he would have been taken with a top 5 pick.
Or an Elijah Moore, who was early second in most drafts last year.
Yeah, because if we break down like the start of the second round from last year's draft, I mean, it's Rashad Bateman, Rondell Moore, Elijah Moore. We're looking at that, and this,
Trey Sermon.
Not me. I was banging the drum against Trey Sermon. Don't do that. And it's funny that you brought him up because James Cook, a lot of people are now comparing to Trey Sermon. I'm actually not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But it's probably going to end up that way.
The risk is there. But yeah.
I mean, what do you so James Cook is a part of your team. He is a Buffalo Bill. So how do you feel about James Cook for the 2022 season and beyond? Because this is like Buffalo's MO. Hey, we got a late day 2, early day 3 pick. Let's take a running back. Who cares? Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. It's kind of what they do. So how do you feel about James Cook and his prospects?
I feel a lot better about him in best ball than I do in a standard league. I think he'll take the RB2 job pretty quick. I think he'll have a good chance to produce. Some of it will come down to health for Singletary. It'll be I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. They want somebody who can catch out of the backfield, even if it's for third down, even if it's it could be for second and third down if they want to stretch the field. Maybe they want to go a little bit more spread. They want to give Josh Allen some room to run if he has some lanes, or he wants to get some more of the weapons spread out and let him maybe take some fewer hits. So I feel good about him. I think he's going to get decent opportunity. I don't know that he'll get a ton of carries and a ton of catches. I think it'll probably skew more toward, if he gets 60, 70 targets over the course of the season, I think that'd be a solid year 1 for him. Hopefully he can haul a bunch of those in. Touchdowns are always going to be tough in Buffalo because when you're inside the red zone, it's Josh Allen land. When you're outside, it's Gabe Davis, it's Stefan Diggs that are going out there at this point.
I gotta hold on. I gotta throw a flag on this play. You started naming Buffalo Bill pass catchers, and the first name out of your mouth is Gabe Davis. The disrespect that Stefan Diggs gets.
One team, man. One team.
Slightly less talented brother of Trayvon Diggs, but a great player in his own right. And you go with Gabe Davis. Oh, Drew, that hurt me. As a man,
we're family. Buffalo is family
that loves Stefan Diggs, maybe even more than his slightly more talented brother Trayvon Diggs. Gabe Davis. I would have even accepted Dawson Knox, but Gabe Davis. Oh, okay. You're one of those guys. If I have any Gabe Davis, I'll try to get a 23 first from you.
Oh my God, stop it.
Wide receiver.
I mean, I could have gone with Isaiah McKenzie.
Isaiah McKenzie. I like Isaiah McKenzie. I mean, with the moves that Buffalo made, I don't know because I think Khalil Shakir could do a little bit this year. Nothing crazy. I'm not saying he's going to be
Gabe Davis numbers, but
one game a season, Gabe Davis coming out to play.
But yeah, I like James Cook overall. I think the somewhere in the end of the first, early second is about as early as I'd take him. I have a team where in Superflex Army with Bill, we were spit and glue at running back last year. Kareem Hunt's our best running back coming into this year.
Okay.
So we had the 111 because we lost to Bill's team in the championship. So we took Spiller there. it was down to him or Rashad White, and my co-manager and I are both Bills homers, so that broke the tie for us pretty easily there. But yeah, I think you could have moderate expectations for him this year. It's a good offense, and I trust that they'll use him in a decent way. I don't think he's going to handle the lion's share of the load. I think Singletary will start out as the RB1, but I think at some point they've got to start taking a little bit of some of the design runs off of Josh Allen's plate too. So I think there will be a little bit of volume for them to spread, but yeah, I don't think he's not going to, I don't think RB1 of this class is in the range of outcomes. I feel like that's pretty well locked up already. But he could be in that second tier based on the offense that he's in.
Can I quote unquote hot take you? I don't like the word hot take because I feel like when I say something like this, there is reasoning behind it. I think Isaiah Spiller has a better 2022 than James Cook.
It'll be interesting because both high-powered offenses, right, with really good quarterbacks, decent amount of weapons around him. Spiller will be tough because he's got Eckler in front of him who is so talented. So it'll be interesting to see what types of opportunities he gets there. But I don't think that's I don't think it's a super low likelihood either. I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility for sure.
So I feel like one of the weaknesses of the LA Chargers offense last year was the fact that Austin Eckler had to do everything because there wasn't really a second guy. There was Jackson and
still had Kelly from the year before.
Yeah, Josh Kelly, insert bum running back here. And I think this is obviously if Isaiah Spiller can prove that he can do it, I think they want that split. Now, don't get me wrong. This ain't a 50-50 split. This is, like Austin Eckler is going to be the leader in that split. But I think they want it more like 60-40 than 80-20. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like a Connor Edmonds kind of deal in Arizona.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Actually, probably more the way that Dallas should be running Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard out there, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, that was a great analogy because I think that Austin Eckler, while he is like cut out of stone, I mean, this guy is in amazing shape. He's still a smaller guy, and I don't think they want the number of hits he had to take last year to be a theme. So I think Isaiah Spiller is going to be put into an opportunity to, like I said, like a 60-40, maybe, at worst a 65-35 split. And I think Isaiah Spiller would be able to do a little something. Buffalo's got so many weapons. Like it's crazy where you start thinking about, they have, Stefan Diggs, they have Gabe Davis, they have Isaiah McKenzie, then they draft Khalil Shakur. They have Dawson Knox, then they signed OJ Howard, who all the talent in the world can't stay healthy. But if they can figure out how to keep him healthy, that's another weapon. And then you have, Devin Singletary, and you add, James Cook. There's just
you got Josh Allen taking a bunch of it.
Yeah, this isn't to say that Los Angeles Chargers don't have guys, because we can list their guys too, and it's just as long of a list as what Buffalo has. But I think that spot is open on the Chargers offense, and I'm not quite sure if that spot is really there. They don't pass a lot to the running back. Now, maybe it's because Zach Moss was supposed to be that guy and he was either ineffective or unavailable. But, but that we haven't seen their offense do that. So it'll be very interesting to see. But I'm glad we got a little James Cook discussion in there because the timeline has been kind of like buzzing about why he's being taken in the exact right place or why he is being way overdrafted. So it's always a fun conversation to have, especially when we get to talk about a Buffalo Bill and we have a fan of the team. You look at that team a little bit closer than any of the other 31 teams. So it's always fun to kind of get your perspective on it.
Sure. So speaking of the weapons and Stefan Diggs, I promised we'd get to one more question about him here. So Walk, a.k.a. The Gift, at Walk_FF, asks, will Cooper Kupp and Stefan Diggs still be wide receiver ones in 2 seasons? Both turned 29 this year. Before I put the results out there, will both of them be wide receiver ones 2 seasons from now, Josh?
No. I just, and this isn't even a referendum on their skill level. I think they're both still going to be really good in 2 years, but we just see wide receivers pour into the league every year. I mean, they come through the draft, and again, we'll talk about 2023 real quick. Oh, all these, and there's guys, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and we're already starting to name off the wide receivers.
Kayshon Boutte,
we can go on, and we're not going to. But, not only are we going to have those rookies coming in 2023, but we got to figure there were 6 wide receivers taken in the first round of the draft this year. One of those guys is probably going to be ranked as a top 12 guy. I'm not going to tell you which one. I think I know which one because I've drafted it that way. But, you got a lot to choose from. You have Drake London. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Jameson Williams. Like, there are guys that, people can make cases for as in 2 years, one of those guys or one of the other guys that was taken, Chris Olave, which I don't believe he'll be that guy, but I can't say for sure. I have reasons why I don't think he'll be that guy, but so one of those guys is at least one of those guys is probably going to be in the top 12. Plus, you're still going to have Jamar Chase. You're still going to have Justin Jefferson,
CD, and
yeah, I hope so with CD. He
I think he'll be in there.
He gets close, but he hasn't been there yet. But, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, those guys aren't 28, 29, 30 years old. Those guys are 23, 24, 25 years old. So in 2 years, it's not like we're going to be saying, DK Metcalf is 28 years old. I don't know if he's going to be in the top 12. DK Metcalf is going to be 25 or 26 years old. So we're still, he's in the prime. We got this. So, I don't think either one will be, and I don't think it's going to be a talent thing. I think it's going to be more of they're going to be old. There's going to be a lot of young guys that are, in there and kind of bump them out. Because we're even talking about that now with guys like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, who have been dominant for multiple seasons. We're like 27, 28, 29 years old. Ugh, we don't like it. And, they're starting to get bumped out, at least in ADP. They're starting to drop,
Yeah.
Talent-wise, I think they're still both going to be great.
Are you talking rankings wide receiver ones or producing as wide receiver ones in 2 years?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I think ADP is definitely neither one of those guys are going to be in there. But I think production-wise, I think they're just so many young guys. I mean, the last 3-4 seasons, we've just introduced multiple guys almost every season that we have then thrown into, the top 12. I mean, Justin Jefferson comes out, is asleep at the wheel for the first month of the season, and then turns in the best rookie season ever. until his teammate Jamar Chase comes out, and he was never really asleep at the wheel. He was pedal to the floor all season, and then breaks that record. And like I said, I think we're going to have a guy or two from this class. We may not be able to predict who that is, but that in 2 years we're going to be saying, oh yeah, maybe it's Garrett Wilson, maybe the Jets, they figured out this offense. There's a bunch of weapons. The offensive line looks good. And, Garrett Wilson is that guy, or Elijah Moore is that guy. I don't want to, kick him out just because a shiny new toy came in. Jameson Williams is going to be catching passes from,
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, one of the top two quarterbacks in the league, probably. So yeah, we have a lot going on, and we still have guys like AJ Brown that can produce. DK Metcalf. I mentioned these guys. What do you think, Drew? Do you think that one, both, or none of those guys are going to be in the top 12?
I voted yes. I think there is a strong enough bromance in both Buffalo and Los Angeles that Josh Allen will continue to feed and lock in on his favorite target. I think Matthew Stafford showed us what he and Cooper Kupp could do this year into the Super Bowl. Do I think that Cooper Kupp is going to be winning the receiving triple crown again in the next 2 years? No. That was an historic season, which was really fun to watch. But do I think that they'll both be, and I'm going based on production here, I think they will both continue to produce as wide receiver ones 2 years from now. I think, like you said earlier, Diggs should have a little bit of a bounce back more toward what his average should be this year. And I think he can do that consistently for a couple more years, because neither of these guys, their style of play is not going to limit them. Like you said, the talent's not going to diminish over the next 2 years. If I'm concerned about one over the other, it's probably Cooper Kupp, where I think lays it out on the line a little bit more maybe than Diggs does. He's had to, based on where he came from. But I think there is a really good chance that both these guys are producing as wide receiver ones 2 years from now, even with the influx, and even looking at how these teams are building too. These guys are still pretty well the alphas on their team versus I look at a Jamar Chase who has a T Higgins with him and still has a Tyler Boyd with him. He's will he not be a wide receiver one? No, he will probably be the wide receiver one still in 2 years. But that's becoming the model. You have Devontae. You just talked about it, going through AJ Brown and some of his competition in Philly, and some of these guys that maybe had targets more to themselves previously. With the influx, the targets will be spread around a little bit more. So I still think there's a good chance that they'll be producing as wide receiver ones in 2 years. Part of it is I think Rocky's starting to rub off on me here, and I'm getting behind some of the older guys as we go along. But
so I want to put a quick counter to that, and then we gotta get out of here because we started late and we're already at an hour and 18 minutes because we love what we do. But I feel like the Rams have been trying to do that, and they haven't quite got it to work. And what I mean by that is, it was Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and then they get OBJ. Now, obviously, the next day or 2 days later, Robert Woods gets hurt in practice and misses the rest of the year. Now it's Allen Robinson. It seems like Sean McVay does want multiple wide receiver weapons there. And I wonder if that is going to keep Cooper Kupp. I actually saw an interesting stat on Twitter, and unfortunately I didn't remember to put it out there, so I apologize. But they put how many 150 plus target seasons Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson had. Cooper Kupp has had 1. Allen Robinson has had 4. And that's just like an interesting stat. That's not me saying Allen Robinson is going to have more targets this year than Cooper Kupp, because I don't believe that. But it's interesting that, Allen Robinson might take over some games. It's just like, hey, he's hot. Everybody's focusing on Kupp, and they're leaving him open in space, and they're letting that big body just catch those balls. And and who's it going to be next year? Because it seems like the Rams have a very interesting, they build their team in a very interesting way. And it's like, okay, like who's the wide receiver that didn't do what they were supposed to do? And let's pick that guy up. Odell Beckham last year, Allen Robinson this year. And by the way, might be Odell Beckham too this year after he rehabs from his injury. He might just go back to the Rams and say, hey, I want to try to win a second Super Bowl. So they have a very interesting team building approach, and I'll be curious to see. But yeah, I think unfortunately, the influx of talent is going to keep those two very talented wide receivers out of the top 12. But I love your arguments, Drew, because it does make a lot of sense. Like these are the alphas on their team, and it's not even really close. There's not a second guy that really worries you that you go, oh man, this guy could really take away targets, take away, the targeting percentage. And, there are some other guys you mentioned, Jamar Chase, and, we can mention AJ Brown, even DK Metcalf with Tyler Lockett. So there are some other guys that have to share the.
Look at Miami, right? We were feeling real good about Waddle and what he was going to get, and then they bring Tyreek in.
Yeah, and they have Tua, which is just it's hurtful anyway. So now more talent with a lesser.
It's gonna be Yak Heaven, baby, Yak Heaven.
Yeah. He can't even hit Tyreek. You can't get Yak if you can't get the ball in the guy's hands.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be throwing 30 yards. 3 yards. 3 yards.
3 yards in a cloud of dust. I love it. But Drew, I think that's it, right? That's all.
Yeah, man.
That's all we got.
That's all of them.
All right, so we're out of here. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I love the chat, man. Chat is great. It's exciting to see people in there, people chatting, people throwing things our way. Remember, if you're in the chat, you're watching us right now, remember to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Also, hit a thumbs up on it. Leave a comment if you want. I try to check comments as much as possible. Sometimes they do sit for a few days because I got a job and a family. Unfortunately, this isn't what I do for a living. So, but leave the comments. I love seeing the comments, even if the comments are just like, hey, I think you're absolutely wrong about Cooper Kupp and Stefan Diggs, Josh. And I'll be like, hey, listen, I can respect where you're coming from. If you're doing the podcast thing, appreciate you guys too, because an hour and 22 minutes is a long time. And you could be doing anything else. The weather's starting to get nice out there now, man. I know in Tennessee it's probably always a little bit nicer than up here near Philadelphia, but it's starting to get nice out. You want to be out with your friends and your family, and you decided to listen to us, and that's appreciated. Make sure if you just kind of stumbled upon us and you're not subscribed, catch that subscribe, man. That makes us feel good inside. And then if you can, rate and review, because I always talk about it. There's algorithms and I don't understand them, and I probably never will. But apparently they help. And, we just want to do this for as many people as will allow us to. So if you could do that, or rate and review, that would be awesome. And Drew, on that note, I think we're out of here.
Late.